Welcome to Origin to Ambition, the show where we explore the small business entrepreneur's journey in business. I'm your host, Sean Dunn. Let's get into it. That's interesting talking about measurability because I think it's one of the areas I personally find that some small business owners that come to me initially and start to work, I often find that that's probably the one area that isn't happening when they come to me. Yeah. They're not measuring. So a query will often be, we feel like we've got a good business, or we feel like we're good at what we do. And actually, we'll talk about that. Being good at business and being good at what you do can be two entirely separate things, but I might ask you about that in a moment. But it's that often not having a handle on metrics that I find is the weak spot in small business. And again, it is small business. They don't have a Big Four accounting firm advising them, or so on. Large management consultancy firms. They're small businesses. So I want to know if that's been your experience and how you overcome that if you do see that. So I guess what I'm saying is this: not a handle on it, but sometimes actually a resistance to doing it because it seems hard.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your take on it because of this, your sporting and business take on those things.
Yeah, look, it can be hard, and look, if people are not used to it, and I've had multiple examples in my life where, and I'll give you one quick one, and it's actually not a business example, it's actually a personal one, where somebody in my life witnessed, so I did a marathon a few years ago, and someone that watched it said that they were inspired, and one day in their lifetime they'd like to do a half marathon. And I started laughing when they started talking about this intention. And they said, "What are you laughing about?" And I said, "I think that's the most wishy-washy goal I've ever heard. One day in your lifetime you'd like to. You're never going to do it." Yeah. So we jumped on the internet, and I booked this person in for a half marathon. And then we ended up running it together 7 months later. The measurability of things, and the other part to it, I reckon there are two parts, Sean. There's firstly setting the goal or the intention or the commitment.
Yes.
Right, there's that part. And then the second part is being held to account. Now, small business owners, if they own the business themselves, they're an individual owner, no one's holding them to account.
Yeah, that's right.
Unless they've got a system within their business, or it could be an external person that holds them to account. So one of the things I do in my elite performance business is I set up accountability partnerships. So you'll have two people that will hold each other accountable, and I've got one myself. And maybe I'll break that down in a little bit of details. My accountability partner and I, Francesco and I, we meet every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. So that's the cadence of it every week. It's up to an hour. Sometimes it's less. It's in person every fourth meeting. So once a month we meet in person.
Yes.
And every other time it's on the phone. We make 3 commitments every time we meet, and we go back on the last week and we talk about how we went with our last 3 commitments. So how'd the last week go? Did we actually achieve them? And if so, how do you feel about it? If not, why not? And as a bit of a joke, he calls himself the drill sergeant. When we first started working together in this, it was going really well, but I'm used to being held to account by coaches in front of plenty of other people, out on the ground, in a meeting room, being told very explicitly whether I'm doing a good job or not. So feedback is almost instant, and it's quite public in front of your peers.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So that's quite. When you first are involved at an AFL level or any elite sport, I would imagine that part of it takes some getting used to. Now, I'd had training on it all the way through juniors and so on, but never to that extent. At AFL level, you put up or shut up. It was a real lesson.
Yes.
So I've been trying to bring some of that, I guess, philosophy to accountability partnerships. And I think you're right. Most people are just not used to this at all. So, I talked before about who's in the box, who's in your box watching you play and watching you perform. Your accountability partner can play a really pivotal role in holding you to account, because I think the average human is built for comfort, not for success.
Yeah.
So if you need other people to help you, hold yourself to account. And even if you're not doing it for yourself, and ultimately you are, but you've got someone who every Tuesday morning is going to say, "Andy, you said you're going to do these 3 things. Are you serious or not?" And you can even take it a step further, Sean. by having a reward and a punishment. So your reward for doing these three things is
Yes.
X, and your punishment is Y. And with your punishments, you can get creative with them and set something that you would hate to have to do.
Yes.
And that is a really good reason to commit to doing what you're committed to do. Just one quick joke that I just want to share about commitment. So an old coach of mine, Alan Jeans, very famous coach,
Yes.
used to now and then talk about the. He'd say, you guys have got to have a look at your commitment. Are you actually committed? And he'd say, when you're next sitting down for your bacon and eggs, just have a think about who's more committed, the chicken or the pig.
Yeah.
The pig's given his life. The chicken's just laid an egg. You guys have got to be committed.
Yeah. This is a question that I didn't really have in mind for you, but it's just occurred to me. Do you find that your own value system plays out clearly in business? Maybe this is a strange question, but do you think that those roles all naturally align, I suppose, with your value system? I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense, but you've got the three roles that they're different. Well, yeah, they're different, but not, I suppose. Do you know what I'm sort of trying to drive at there?
Yeah, I do. Look, the short answer is they absolutely align with my values. So
Yeah.
I've been through an exercise, Sean, and I've got 6 values. One of them is community contribution, and that's my Hawthorn role.
Yes.
Another one is knowledge transfer. So transferring to other people what I know and what I know to be true, and frankly have learnt through, success and failure
Yes.
in a sporting and business environment, or the two environments. And it's interesting because, elite sport and experience in elite sport helps you perform in business and vice versa. But sport can teach business a lot, and I've been able to apply sporting principles. And one of those sporting principles that I love applying is measurability. So sport is fantastic for measuring things.
Yes.
When you're playing on the field, everyone can look up at the scoreboard, and you don't know exactly how much time is left, but you know what you've got to do to win the game, or what you've got to do to get over your opponent. Everyone can see that you're 7 points down, and it's the 25-minute mark of the last quarter. You know that you've got to kick 2 goals to win that game. That's in Aussie rules parlance.
Yes.
But yeah, so measurability, and I don't see enough measurability with either individuals or businesses. It's
Yes.
just not there enough. And one of my favourite stories on that, it goes back a while, but when Pepsi was trying to chase Coke in the Cola Wars,
Yes.
at head office, but in every single PepsiCo office, they had a comparison. It was all on market share. They had a comparison between Coke and Pepsi. And everybody knew when they walked into the office and when they walked out, when they came to reception, they saw we're gaining on Coke. And that was so that measurability was right there for everybody to see. And I think that's something that sport does incredibly well.
That's interesting, because you've said a few times there that you didn't know what it would be, but you knew you wanted your own business. You wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yep.
So do you think that that's a trait like that? Is that I'm not sure how to phrase this actually, but do you think that entrepreneurs do have that sort of an inherent desire to run their own show, regardless of what that show might end up being?
Yeah, look, I think it's a common characteristic. Yes. I don't think it's absolutely essential that you want to run your own show. And sometimes people become consultants or business owners through another laneway. I read a fantastic book when I was playing footy called The E-Myth, which I'm sure you're all over, Michael Gerber. And I had the honour and the privilege of seeing Michael speak live in Melbourne when I moved back from Brisbane. So I started my footy career with Hawthorn, finished it with Brisbane. So I moved back to Melbourne. I was looking at my next step business-wise, and I went to a workshop with Michael Gerber in at the Arts Centre. And he asked this fantastic question. He said, what is the only reason to own a business? And all these hands went up in the audience, and people were yelling out things. To be your own boss. Wrong, he said. To make more money. Wrong. To be more flexible. Wrong. Every single answer from the audience was wrong according to him, and no one got it. And he said, the only reason to own a business is so that you can sell it. Because if you can't sell your business, you don't own one. You own a job. You just happen to employ yourself. And that really resonated with me. And I thought, Okay, I'm getting a better sense now of what being an entrepreneur really means. And I think it's growing something that isn't reliant on you. That's a true business.
Yes.
And so I took that mindset and that approach into the wealth management field. So I think that part, even if you don't have a so-called entrepreneurial bone in your body, I think if you have that mindset and that focus,
Yeah.
whether you're so entrepreneurialism tends to be assimilated with risk taking. And
Yes.
I say to people who are employed, well, there's a risk that you're not going to have your job anymore if your employer says, well, sorry, but there's no more job for you here anymore.
Yes.
AI's taken it, or there's some reason why your department, we're shutting down, we're offshoring it, or what have you. Running your own business is also a risky maneuver, but anything that you do takes inherent risk. And in my case, I just always wanted to work for myself and be a key decision maker. I didn't have to be the sole owner of the business or sole boss of the business, if you like, but because I've had partners, I had a partner in that business that I ended up selling, and in the current stuff that I'm doing, I've got partners in one of those businesses as well. So, but I think being an entrepreneur, yes, there's an inherent amount of risk taking, but there's risk in everything.
I like the story, actually, and we've discussed that story previously between ourselves around, you have to, the purpose of the business is that you should be able to sell the business. And today's discussion's about you, and it's certainly not about me, but I think you know that I'm very focused with my clients on making sure their business is exit ready, even if they don't wish to exit at any particular time. So I think that that's a great lesson that you've just spoken about, because as you say, you may not be inherently entrepreneurial, but if you have a couple of lessons in mind or a framework, I suppose, you can be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's all for this episode of Origin to Ambition. Thanks for tuning in. To make sure you don't miss our next conversation, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen in. For more information, you can visit us at dominiumcapital.com.au, and we'll see you next time.